I was disgusted. I'm like starting to tear up. I'm trying to get it together, dude. I think this series could have been better. Tons of trigger warnings. Tons, and tons. Really quick, before we get into the video, I just wanted to say a massive thank you for everyone who has subscribed. I now have over 1,000 subscribers, and to celebrate, I opened up a Q&A form. So if you'd like to ask me a question, go ahead and use the link in the description. If I get enough questions, I'll go ahead and film a Q&A. Once again, a big thank you, and let's get into the video. Hi, I'm Manga Captor, and welcome to January's reading wrap-up. This month I read over 20 things, a mixture of manga and novels, and I'm excited to talk about it. So let's get right into the video. I started the year strong with what I consider to be one of my favorite books of all time, Lonely Castle in the Mirror. It is important to note that this book comes with some pretty strong trigger warnings, so I will put those on screen now. In this story, our main character, Kokoro, doesn't want to go to school anymore. She had a traumatic experience and refuses to go back. Her parents are supportive as best as they can be and allow her to stay home. She spends her days not doing much. She mostly stays in her room and watches her favorite TV programs. But one day she notices a mirror in her bedroom glowing. She discovers that her mirror is a portal to a strange castle. But she isn't the only one who has made this strange discovery. Multiple children around her age have also made it to the castle. They were all invited by a mysterious little girl in a wolf's mask. She explains that hidden within the castle is a key to a wishing room where they will be granted one wish. The story follows these children as they spend their days away from home in the castle, playing video games, chatting, and eating convenience store food. This once strange castle has become a refuge away from their stressful lives. This book left such a lasting impression on me. It was such a beautiful story that I cannot wait to read again. Moving on to the next thing I read in January, Life Ceremony. First of all, this book has tons of trigger warnings. Tons, and tons. It basically has any trigger warning you can think of, so I'd recommend looking into it first before picking up this book. I'll place some of the trigger warnings on screen now so that you can be aware of them. This book had me all over the place. I was moved, I was disgusted, I was intrigued, I was scared, I was surprised. Life Ceremony is a collection of short stories by Sayaka Murata. A lot of these short stories focus on societal taboos from mild to severe. Mild being two platonic women living together and raising children, and severe being eating hot pot with human flesh of the recently deceased as a way to honor their life. Yeah, the range is wild. Some of these short stories are just vibes, while others try to tackle issues that are all too familiar, like how women sometimes feel the need to play roles for their safety and acceptance. Some stories focus more on societal interactions, like how eating another's food involves us trusting the stories and culture revolved around each dish, and how societal morals can change and make us forget what we used to condemn, for better or for worse. This book is a roller coaster, one that almost made me puke, but it was still a good time. And after that somewhat difficult read, I was happy to get into What Did You Eat Yesterday? I read volumes 10 through 13. If you've been here long enough on my channel, you know that I love this series and I still love it. This series continues to be a treat, filled with delicious dishes, compassion, honesty. I still recommend this for fans of slice of life, gay romance, and food. I also finished reading Otomen. I read volumes 11 through 18 and absolutely enjoyed my time with this series. Here are just two of my favorite covers out of this series. I love these characters, I love this story. This series follows Asuka, a boy who is trying his best to hide his feminine heart and hobbies. He ends up falling in love with Ryo, a classmate of his who has stereotypically masculine hobbies. She is drawn to Asuka and appreciates his feminine side, which makes Asuka fall for her even more. We follow their journey as they pursue their feelings for one another, and it's such a sweet and simple story of young love, and just how much someone can feel like home when they accept you as you are and love what makes you, you. But there is more than just romance. This series spends a lot of time on expression and personality. It focuses on how hobbies and interests aren't and shouldn't be gendered, as well as how we can't assume someone's gender or sexuality necessarily based off of their hobbies, interests, personality, etc. Men can love makeup, shoujo manga, and flowers and still be men, which in 2006, the year the first Otomen volume released, seemed progressive. Now, not so much. But that's a good thing. It shows that we've grown past some bad conditionings, and hopefully we continue down that path. This series has a pretty big cast of characters, and I deeply love so many of them. There are guys who love shoujo manga, makeup, flowers, baking, cooking, knitting, everything. My favorite character is Hajime to no Mine on this cover here. It's so fun to see these characters ignore societal expectations and instead pursue their passions without a single care. I just love seeing them happy. Now that I've talked about the positives, it's time to get into the negatives. So I love that this series tries to dismantle stereotypes, but it goes about it in an imperfect way. I think this series could have been better by completely eliminating adjectives such as boyish or girlish when describing hobbies, because it only further enforces our idea that knitting and sewing are hobbies for women when described as girlish activities. There's also a lot of characters that exclaim how Asuka would make an excellent wife when they find out that he can cook amazingly delicious and cute meals. So the message of this series gets a little lost in its comedic moments, and the payoff is just not worth it in my opinion. I was thinking, okay, maybe the author chose this language because then we see just how absurd it sounds. How ridiculous it is to call a man a woman just because they can cook. As if gender is something that anyone can decide for someone else based off of appearance or behavior. Right? I don't know. I'd like to give her the benefit of the doubt. There's also a bit of queerbaiting in this series that is unnecessary, and it's not like Ayakano, the mangaka of this series, is opposed to queer representation. Otomen does have a queer character. I'll admit, though, that they aren't given the full respect they deserve. She's also written another series called Requiem of the Rose King, which features an intersex protagonist. So I don't think she meant any harm at all. I just wish there was a little more research done and a little more forethought put into some aspects of the story. But that doesn't stop me from loving this series. I still adore it. It's fluffy, silly, and just hands down fun to read, and I'm excited to reread it again in the future. I read the first volume of a series that is new to me, and that is Gafe Kichijoji de. I don't really have much to say about this first volume. It didn't deliver the reading experience I was hoping for. This is a short 3-volume slice of life series that follows the crazy day-to-day life of the staff at Cafe Kichijoji. It didn't do anything too interesting to hook me. I also felt that it was confusing at times and didn't do much to clear itself up. Also, almost none of the characters stood out to me in a positive way. The only character I enjoyed reading about was the witchcraft practicing chef, Chef Minagawa, which is no surprise since I love both magic and cooking when it comes to my manga. Overall, this volume was just forgettable and not interesting enough to get me invested, so I'll be dropping this series. I also read The Traveling Cat Chronicles. I haven't cried this much over a book in a while. I'm sure you've noticed that I'm quite the fan of cats. My spouse and I have adopted 3 strays, and they are a huge part of our lives. So when I heard about this book, I knew I just had to read it. This book centers around the connection between a stray cat, Nana, and their human companion, Satoru. We follow these two as they take a long road trip together, visiting Satoru's friends on the way. With each visit, we look into the past and learn more about Satoru and how he first befriended each person he visits on this trip. I adored this book. It's written so beautifully and simply. On top of that, Nana has a voice and at times narrates the story, which is just so precious. Not only do we learn more about Satoru and his kind heart towards humans and animals, but we also get to see Nana grow as they take in their surroundings and deepen their bond with Satoru. But Nana has this nagging thought. Just why are we taking this road trip? This book is just so beautiful and I'm still recovering. If I ever need to cry on command, I'll just think about this book. Nabari no O. This series has some pretty big trigger warnings, which I'll place on screen now. So I read volumes 6 through 13 from my personal collection, and I read the last one online. And that's it. I finished this series. When I finished reading it, I honestly had to just sit in silence for a bit. I've accepted that I probably won't read something this powerful again for quite a bit. I'm like starting to tear up. Sorry, this is embarrassing. It really sank its teeth into me, and it made me feel what the characters were feeling in a way that was haunting. It just shows how talented this mangaka is, not only with their art, but also their storytelling. I'm trying to get it together, dude. If you're not familiar with this series, I'll give a simple summary. This story follows our protagonist, Miharu, who is an indifferent 14-year-old who soon realizes he has a hidden power within him, a secret art, the Shinra Bansho, which can essentially grant any wish. This power is sought after by rival ninja clans, placing him in the middle of danger from one day to the next. His indifference is challenged by the dangers he and his friends go through, the violence and the killing of others just to get closer to this secret art. His teacher and friends vow to protect him and turn him into the Nabari no O, the king of the ninja world. And that's all I can really say without spoiling the story. You can see how it makes it hard to talk about what I really loved about this series, so I'll just explain how it made me feel. The characters were incredible and were layered in a way that felt believable. I could see what made them human, why they hurt, what they were after, and why. When Miharu was in pain, I felt it. When Miharu was happy, I felt it. And that's because the mangaka has such an amazing talent when it comes to writing characters and portraying emotion, particularly messy emotions that are hard to put into words. This series touches on how apathy can disguise itself as an effective way to hide from pain, when really it hinders you from being truly alive. Apathy can subside when we make an effort to open up and connect with others. Opening ourselves up will allow us to feel things, happiness, gratitude, and joy, but eventually also pain. Despite that, being vulnerable with the right people is worth it. It is through genuine connections that we can discover ourselves and experience the best of what life has to offer. We run from pain and do anything to avoid pain, but sometimes we have to shoulder it. I loved this series so much. I would tell you to go out and read this right now, but it's out of print and it's hard to find. But there is an anime if you're interested. It's a very powerful series. I would just recommend read it when you are in a good mental headspace, because it is a lot to go through, but it is ultimately a beautiful journey that I am just so happy to have had. And that is all for January's reading log. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.